Hi everyone. So we can start. Good evening, all. So it's privilege to have Jitendra, who is a Sitecore MVP here, who will take us through the disaster recovery and high availability with Sitecore Managed Cloud. On behalf of Sukh Chennai, welcoming Jitendra for this webinar. So extending my warm welcome to all the participants who have joined. So over to Jitendra. We are very excited to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you, Sitecore Group, who is planning this session for today. So, so today we are going to discuss about the high availability in the disaster recovery with the Sitecore Managed Cloud. So, this topic is very important because almost like all client, they would prefer to have the proper disaster recovery plan and the high availability for their project. So today I'm going to share that what are the basic fundamentals, and when you choose what are the key points you will keep keep consideration while making the decisions, right? So that is the plan. um, Let me start here. Okay, so hello everyone. So as I said, my name is Jitendra. I'm Sitecore MVP. I love Sitecore and the cloud technology. You can follow me at Chituswami JK on Twitter with the Sitecore experiences. Now today, there are two parts, right? So the agenda is we will discuss the basic concept of the DR and the HA. We'll also discuss the RTO and RPO, which is key things like when you propose a solution to the client, they would usually ask that, hey, what is the RTO and RPO? Like when something goes down, how you'll make sure that within this particular time, the backup system will be up and running. And the second point is like, will there be any data loss and what would be the consequences for that? Third, we'll discuss what Sitecore's offer as a disaster recovery with the managed cloud. There are few unsupported scenarios that we are going to discuss and a few practical scenarios. So I will create a few apps and we'll try to create some scenarios. And the last one is how you will choose the right strategy to get the best outcome of the investment from your clients, right? So these are the agenda, and who can get the benefits? Of course, developers can get the benefits because that's their daily in and out. Businesses can get the benefits because I'm going to share a few things. They can implement and get the solution more cost effective. Sales team can get the benefit if they can understand a few things from today's session. So let's get into it. So first point is business continuity plan, right? So BCP is it's not only for the Sitecore, any business plan, right? So any project in cloud or any on-premises cloud, right? There's always a business continuity plan. Simply, right? If something goes down, what will happen? It's a very common question, right? So with the Sitecore Managed Cloud, because it's sitting in the cloud, right? So there should be a plan that if something goes wrong into that particular data center or from the zone, then do we have any backup system? So those kind of things we'll discuss here. So the process of creating system of prevention and recovery, pretty standard, like how we will execute the disaster recovery. So the business continuity basically has two major items, right? So disaster recovery. So if something goes wrong, what is our backup plan, as I mentioned, right? So the DR will allow an organization to maintain or quickly resume mission critical functions, right? So that is the disaster recovery, right? High availability. So you might have seen that on Azure resources, you would see this resource is available 99.9, you know, uh, commitment as SLA, right? So these are the high availability resources. So with the combination of HA and DR, we usually define business continuity plan. Now, RTO and RPO, right? So these are, so let's say in a new project, right? So you are creating a business continuity plan, right? But how do you measure that the BCP is, is it aligned with the business need or not? And, how do you measure it, right? So to measure the BCP, we need to understand that, what is the business criticality, what are the key business components, and if those components goes down, how quickly we can recover those components. So that is the RTO. Let's say um, if you are having a Sitecore Managed Cloud, XN or XP, right? So if your client says, hey, what will happen if, let's say, this web app goes down, right? Then you would say, hey, we would do a new deployment, or maybe we have a already deployed instances. We will just route traffic there, which is fine, right? But they would ask that, okay, how much time it will take to get it done, right? So that is kind of the measurement units, right? Where Sitecore makes a commitment. Microsoft says we have this um, disaster recovery plan. If the whole data center or the zone goes down, then it will be back up within, let's say, 5 minutes. So these are the RTOs. RPO more about like when you have the backup plan, but what are the chances of losing the data, right? If your SQL instance is up and running, your instances and data are up and running, and something goes down. So what are the chances, and how you make sure that your data is fully recovered and up and running on a new instances. So these are the standard terminology. Now, understanding the Sitecore Azure resources. I will just take a pause here. Uh, Please feel free to ask any questions during the presentation. That should be fine. Or maybe we'll have 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the session to discuss all the questions. So Sitecore Azure resources. So if you see, we have these key resources, right? So the app services. So you see that CD, CM, and reporting instances are running on the app services. And then we have Azure SQL, right? Which has all the database master, web core, all your form data, all your reporting, and application insights, Azure search, Redis case, key vault, automation account. Automation is more about if you want to perform any additional task with the PowerShell script. So these are the resources, right? So let's say any of the resource goes down, like maybe Azure SQL, right? If it is hosted in one of the data center, let's say in Australia, somewhere in Australia center region, in a particular data center, if it goes down, will all the applications, all the CD and CM, will that be up and running? No, right? Because if your database is not there, it will not, perform anything, right? So we need to make sure not only app services, all your Azure resources are properly, reviewed and identify that what would be the, HA strategy, what would be a disaster recovery strategy for these resources, right? So we'll discuss these things in the next section. So what Sitecore's offer, right? So Sitecore has two kind of services, basic DR and the managed DR. So basic DR is basically hot and cold. So you have one deployment resource group which has all your CD, SQL, queries sitting there. If something goes down, there would be a manual, downtime, a page showing that hey, site is down, and someone will go and do the deploy, restore the database, and then the new environment will be up and running, right? So during this time, of course, this will take time, right? But it is cost effective because you're not having two instances up and running. So basic DR, you will have one instance up and running. So we need to review what is the business requirement, right? If the business is super critical, it's like e-commerce site, every like each minute is very important, then it makes sense to have two uh, hot and hot, environments up and running. If the business is running, only informative side, which is not impacting the business. So based on these scenarios, we can make the decision, right? So the second approach is managed DR, right? So it is full size deployment and work as a secondary deployment unit. So you deploy all your code to uh, replica of the existing, resources and keep them up and running. And then if one set of resources goes down, your traffic manager, which is sitting on both resources, primary, secondary, it will start pointing to the secondary, resources. So it is, very shorter RTO because you don't need to uh, deploy it again. You don't need to perform all the manual activities, right? So it's a fully automated kind of thing, right? So these are the basic concepts. So now, what is the commitment, right, for the RTO and RPO? So as I said, right, so the basic DR, SQL Azure backup. So because it is a basic DR, when you set up the Azure SQL backup, you can schedule maybe, 1 day or 3 hours. Based on that schedule, you will define your RPO. Maybe it could be 3 hours or 1 hour. And then RTO is 4 hours based on your, what is the complexity of your project, right? If it is simple XM solutions, only two CD instances, maybe it would be 2 hours, right? You just need to redeploy and restore the database backup. But if it is like highly scalable CD instances and um, XP instances, right, then it could be 4 hours and more. With a managed DR, so you basically do the SQL Azure geo replications. So it means your SQL instance is constantly replicating the data into a different geo, right? So by default, it is uh, doing doing this disaster recovery. If one instance goes down, your replication, would be a primary node and will serve the traffic. So this is for SQL Azure, right? If you are using SQL managed instance, then you would probably set up the failover group. So you set up the SQL instances and similar instances sitting into the different region, and you create a failover group. So if one is set of instances goes down, the second instances will up and start serving the traffic. Let me know if anyone has any questions. Or okay, I will uh, move forward. So the basic DR, if you can see from this diagram, so let me see here. So so there is a global traffic manager, as you can see here, right? So your traffic will be served from here in the basic DR, and this traffic manager basically uh, this is deployed as a global, so it will always serve the traffic, and it will point to your one uh, primary resource, right? It will point to a city instances, and then you will have single SQL set of instances. If one of the instances here goes down, you have to perform all the manual activities. You have to deploy it again, and then you need to update the connection history. You In that case, there would be simple outage page showing on your website that hey, site is down. We are recovering. Now, with this, I think these are the steps I just mentioned, so I will skip this one. But with the manage DR, you see there is a traffic manager which is serving the traffic, and it is pointing to two instances. So this is a primary and this is secondary. So the traffic manager will have the weightage. So this will have one weightage and this will have two weightage. So by default, the traffic manager will always point to one, which is this resource set, and this SQL would be SQL data replications in a different region, right? So if let's say this web app goes down, it will automatically, so this web app goes down, the traffic manager will change the priority. It will start pointing to this one. And this is pointing to, again, replicated SQL instances. So there won't be any much downtime. Moving forward, so what are the unsupported scenarios? Let's say very less chances if your global services goes down, right? Traffic manager is down, which is very less chances. There's a large scale failure, right? Both the primary and your backup secondary data centers are down. Some network connectivity issues. So this could be unsupported scenarios. Now, I will start some practical thing, but is there any questions anyone want to raise? Okay, I will continue with them. So for the practical scenario, basically, okay. So to manage this disaster recovery and high availability, so these are the tools usually I put some comparison that Azure Traffic Manager, which will manage the traffic, application gateways, Azure Front Door, Azure Load Balancer. You can point multiple apps, and then you can route the traffic. But Azure Traffic Manager is the main entry points to have the disaster recovery with the Sitecore Managed Cloud. So what I would do, I will just show you here. Okay. So I have this resources here, which I just created. Um, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep, yep, yep. So what I did, I created a simple web app on .NET 6, and on this index page, I just added that what is the service name, and then it will give me the host name of web app, right, wherever it hosted. So simple, very simple project. And then I created this two web app, DR2 test and the DR1 test. Now DR1 test, what I did, just publish from here, uh, published. So I published the same code on DR1 as well as the DR2. So if I run this code, so you see the app service name, which is the service name 5 1v. Now if I go here, which is second app, which is giving me a different name, which is D4. Okay, so now we have two web app up and running, right? So if you see here, this app I deployed basically in a different location. So DR2 is Australian Southeast and DR1 is Australia East, right? So it means I have the same code which is running on different region, right? Now how the traffic will be served. So I just created a new uh, traffic manager. Now this is important. You see the location of the traffic manager. So it is global, right? So it means it is uh, regardless of any location, the Azure Microsoft will make sure that it would be up and running. Even if your one region goes down, it would serve the traffic. That is what the global location is, right? So in the traffic manager, basically you have endpoints. So you can define your endpoint, right? So the endpoint is test one, which is pointing to app services. I just gave it a name, target resources, and then priority is the one. Now the same thing, uh, there is a DR2, both are online, right? So it means both are hot and hot, like both are up and running as the same code set. And if we can configure the DNS here, which would be the main site, and if I hit this one, so you see the traffic is coming from 51V because this is the priority one, right? In any case, if this goes down, the test two will take the priority. So for us, this traffic manager is an entry point, and then we will keep using it. In the backend, if one goes down, it will automatically get the seconds up and running. Now that's what simple things I just wanted to show here. Then these were the steps. I thought sometimes doing the practical takes time, so I put those screenshots here. Now again, so this is important that when you define your traffic manager, you have few options. You can define that what are the routing method, right? Based on the performance, based on the weightage, based on the priority, based on the geography. So based on this, you can define that how your traffic will be routed. Again, these are the steps how I created. Now, how to choose the correct combination, right? So, so this is very good site. If you see here, this is the SLA agreement sign, right? So all the resources which we just discussed, we can search here. Let's say, sure, there is case, right? So what is the availability SLA for the Redis case? So that's availability is 99.9. This is uptime. So we need to compare with the business that, hey, 99.9 uptime, is it okay? Do we really need another set of resources as a hot and hot? Because there is a cost, right? Sometimes business wanted to do something, but we need to make sure that what are the benefits they're going to get from those things, right? If the another thing would be that um, the resources, let's say the Redis case, right? So Redis case, by default, it's deployed. It is a standard tier. It's deployed into one region, into the one region and one zone, right? So if the business want to have only the high availability, we can change the tier from standard to the premium, and that will give the options that your Redis will be deployed in 3 zones. So one zone, one data center goes down, it will still up and running, right? So within the region, you can have the high availability, then you don't need to replicate all your resources into the different regions. And that's called the high availability. If the business wanted to have, let's say, business critical items settings into the different region, then there is a cost, and then you need to set up all the resources altogether. So this is very good uh, site. You can check SLA for all the instances. Now, second is the globe. So this again, good globe where you can see uh, what is the status of Azure resources like data centers, and you can see how many data centers are there in particular region, and then you can make that decisions. So you can see from here, if I go India, there is a different data center. So you can take this as a reference. Australia, there is a Australia center data center. So yeah, so that's all I wanted to, you know, provide you the context. So this is kind of important topic, like when you do the new instance setup with the Sitecore Managed Cloud, they would ask that, hey, what is your plan for disaster recovery? Do you want to do it manually? Do you want to do the automation? What would be the RTO, RPO kind of things, right? I'm happy to take any questions if we have anyone uh, in today's group.
Any questions, guys? Jitendra, I have one question, right? So if any one of the resource under one region, right? So the primary
Yeah,
or second, the primary region, if it fails, still the related resources we will not be using, right? We are rerouting to the region 2, right? The secondary region. So until
yeah,
we fix the particular resources in the primary region, right?
yeah. So this example here. So if your one, do you mean the whole reason, or do you mean by a
Any of the
particular?
resource, either SQL or any app service.
So so here is the point, right? So let me open this again. So let's say what the traffic manager, right? So we only expose CD instances, right, as a public facing site, right? So the traffic always comes to the CD instance. If your CD instances goes down, it will reroute to the secondary CD instances. Okay. Um, let's say your SQL instance goes down, but your CD instance is up and running. It automatically connected with the failover group. So still the primary resource will serve the traffic, but down the line it will take from the secondary. The database data will be taken from the secondary uh, resource group.
Yeah. And the next question is, if you're using managed cloud, right? So how the solar will be counted for the disaster recovery and high availability? Any specific option, or we have to set it up manual with managed cloud, or it's part of
That's very,
the managed cloud?
yeah, I think that's very good questions. Yeah. So the solar one, right? So let's say traffic manager, you have the Solar sitting here, right, on the primary resources, right? Now it
Yes.
depends that how you configure your Solar instances, right? So Solar, if you're using, let's say, search stack, which provide Solar Cloud as a, as a service, then if I can throw here, so let's say here we have the Solar instance, right? If it is a cloud, then you just need a Solar point which will be hooked here, right? And then because this is a cloud, right? It already sitting maybe in a different region, then there won't be any downtime. If it is not cloud and we have set up Solar somewhere around here in this particular resource group, then we need to set up the similar Solar here, right? And the indexes rebuild will be not available on the secondary resource group. So we have to rebuild the indexes in that case because there is a no any you know connectivity or kind of replications. So this would have all your deployed collections, all the indexes, but there could be chances that you would need to reindex um, your Solar um, collections here. That makes sense.
Yeah, yes. Or we can have a centralized solar cloud, right? Instead of such tags, we can have a centralized solar cloud with
Yes.
Zookeeper and right. So that will manage, right? If any other
Um,
nodes.
yes. If you have your own Solar cloud sitting on either Windows or Linux, I think that's better because Solar cloud is very powerful in managing, the failover. You would have your own Zookeeper and different nodes. So if your one nodes goes down, Solar itself will make sure that it will spin up, it will route the traffic to the different node. So if you are using the Solar cloud, not the service stack, then you can have the same thing uh, within the Solar cloud.
Yeah,
This one is when you have Solar as a standalone, as a master slave. This is a search state. Then you can have Solar cloud as a on premises, and then maybe Covio kind of thing. That's different thing. Yeah. But that's a very good
yeah,
question, Nihar, I think.
yeah,
Same thing. Other resources like Redis case, right? So Redis case, maybe when your whole region goes down, it will point to different Redis case. Then the session will be recreated, right? So it depends. If your business is very critical, then uh, we sometimes for Atma we prefer having the Redis case as a premium tier. So this Redis case itself will be deployed to different um, uh, three data center within the same region, right? So if one data center goes down, still two and three are available, and if the whole goes down, then only it will goes into the different region.
yeah. Yes. So, any other question, guys?
Hi Jitendra, Jatin this side.
I think
Hey, so Jitendra, in case of like region one, if I am using sticky sessions with website, and if my region one is getting down, even if my
yeah.
region second on three is up, will it redirect users to other regions?
So your sticky session will be not available. It will recreate the session,
Okay.
but if you are using Redis to cache your data, and then Redis is sitting into the reset in different data center,
Okay.
it will serve the traffic. But if this whole region goes down, and if you're talking about the sticky session, then it will recreate those sessions. here.
Okay.
You have to, yeah, they would be, and that is what RTO is, right? There is a like, time it will take to point to the different web apps.
Okay.
So sticky session, like CD instances, you can scale, you can have multiple here, which is with one session. And then the another would be like you can put the load balancer here, not the traffic manager. If you want to keep your sticky session in much better way, so you can have your load balancer, and then you can reroute to a different web apps, and then you can.
Correct. Because like I know in case of non-sticky session, definitely it can be handled, because non-sticky sessions can be managed directly through cache and through different server. But in sticky session, actually sometimes we saw this problem, because sticky session only one server will take the whole user journey.
Yeah. So the sticky session, we need to understand how it works. Is the fundamental, right? So sticky session at the client level, right? It keeps an identification, right, at the client browser. Now, what identification we want to keep at the client browser? Let's say my sticky session say, hey, this is web app 1, right? And this is my browser, right? I'm keeping that, hey, web app 1 is here. My web app 1 is down. Now I don't have any web app, right? It will fall. Now what key I'm having load balancer, right? So load balancer, hey, it's up and running. Web app 1 down, it doesn't matter. Web app 2 is up and running. So how we configure, that's also key points here. But that's very good question. I think um, sticky session is again, it's not that straightforward things.
Correct. Okay, that's all. Thanks, Jitendra.
Thanks, Jatin. Is there any more questions? So the reason, just 1 minute. So I just want to give the content. The reason we are having this session, right? So it's very common thing, right? When you have disaster recovery, high availability, everyone is moving into the managed cloud, right? So it's very common when you start doing your new project on, let's say, 10.2, right, with the managed cloud. When you set up your XM or XP, the next question would be, what is the plan for disaster recovery? Right? So this you should know, what is the RTO, what is the RPO, as Jatin and Nizar said, right? How you manage your sticky session, right? How you manage if your Redis case or solar indexes, right? Do I need solar cloud? Do I need master slave kind of a standard classic thing? So it's a very common thing, and then it's not only related with the Sitecore, because these are the cloud very standard resources, and will help uh, throughout the SDLC process. Yeah. Yeah, these are like, I can wait like a few more minutes. I'm happy to take any questions, guys. The session here is just to make sure that we learn something, and if any things which even doesn't make sense, please discuss, so we can get some points out from this discussion.
Yes, that's absolutely, it is helpful. Yeah.
Any other question, guys? Maybe? Thank you so much, Jitendra. As you said, right, it is maybe very basic things, because every project might know, since we are upgrading everything. So maybe this is the main thing which we could everyone actually want to know it. We thank you so much for such a detailed explanation for everything. On behalf of Suchan, I thank you for the participants also who are part of this session. Thank you all.
Thank you all, guys. Have a good evening.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you, Jitendra.
Thank you.